Good morning. The world is changing at hyperspeed, and we must develop hyper learning to keep up. The days of power and leadership based on content. Now, content was or is, I know more than you, therefore I'm smarter than you, and I am more powerful than you. Those days are over. There's just simply too much data to deal with. And it's time for a new and a better model. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Frank Zaccari, and this is Life Altering Events. Now, as I just said, technology is completely transforming how we live, how we work, and more importantly, who is going to work. This shift is big. It is bigger than the Industrial Revolution because it requires that we as humans continuously transform cognitively, emotionally, and behaviorally. A new way of being based upon inner peace and otherness is required in the new way of working. We have to humanize the workplace. This will enable people to work at the highest levels. And I wish these were my words, but they're not. They're the words of my guest, Professor Edward Hess. Let me tell you something about Professor Hess. He is someone who is in the forefront of shifting the way we do business, but more importantly, the way we think. Now, what has he done? He is a professor of the business administration at the Batten Fellow and the Batten Executive in Residence at the Darden Graduate School of Business at the University of Virginia. We're talking top of the level, folks. He's at the top. He spent 20 years in the business world as a senior executive before joining academia. He has 13 books, over 150 practitioner articles, over 60 Darden cases dealing with growth, initiative, learning cultures, systems, and processes. The common theme in all of his work is high individual and organizational performance. Now, he has appeared in over 400, let me repeat that, 400 media outlets worldwide. He is a sought-after speaker, and he is a sought-after leader. His new book is Hyper Learning, How to Adapt at the Speed of Change. This is a must-read. If you don't have it, go get it. Professor Hess, welcome to Life Altering Events.
Well, thank you very much, Frank, and please call me Ed. It's great being with you.
Well, it's my pleasure. Now, Ed, I listened to you on a podcast with our friend Jeff Eichler, and you intrigued me. And you said we need to change the way we characterize smart. Would you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, when I grew up in school, and I'm sure when you grew up in school, who was smart? What determined whether you were smart? All right. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, the people that got the highest grades were smart. Well, yes. What did you do to get the highest grades? You made fewer mistakes. So we identified ourselves as, I know more than you. Okay. Therefore, I am smart. That definition of smart doesn't work anymore. A couple of reasons. Technology and big data, etc., is basically producing new knowledge at the rate of a shelf life of 2 to 3 years. Though knowledge is constantly changing. So what you knew 5 years ago, 4 years ago, is not likely true today. The second thing is, all right, we need to basically divest our ego with what we know, because it gets in the way of the types of behaviors that are going to be required to excel in the digital age. It's very hard to be open-minded. It's very hard to be a good listener. It's very hard to be a good collaborator if I know. All right? I was out there in the real world for many years, and I played the old game. It was the old game, all right? I go into a meeting, a team meeting, and figured I had the answer. What was my job? Basically to get my answer out there as fast as possible, to get rid of any objections, and adjourn the meeting as fast as possible. It was a competition. It was to win, all right? And as soon as I won, let's get the heck out of there, all right? Well, the fact is what's going to go on now is that I can't behave that way. All right? I'm not going to know more than smart machines. the type of learning or the type of value add that I can add, and any person can add going forward in the smart machine age is the following. I've got to be able to think differently than the technology. That's very high order thinking. Higher order critical thinking, innovative thinking, creative, imaginative, and the highest order is emergent thinking. I got to be able to think differently. Well, the science says we are suboptimal learners, we are suboptimal thinkers because we are wired to go out and basically seek confirmation of what we believe. We go out in the world and we see very little, we process very little, small percentage, less than 0.1% of the stimuli that's out there. And we're just basically confirmation seeking machines. We seek confirmation. We seek affirmation of our ego. Everybody wants head pats. Everybody wants head pats, okay? And we seek cohesiveness of our stories of how the world works. We're suboptimal learners. We are not naturally open-minded. We are not naturally very good listeners. We are not naturally good collaborators. We are naturally competitors. We are naturally I-me oriented. All of that won't work in the digital age. So it requires a new definition of smart. A new definition of smart.
I love that. I love I read that in your book, and I heard you say that before. Now you say there are five principles of the new smart. Can you share some of those?
Yes. Principle number one. I'm defined not by what I know or how much I know, but by the quality of my thinking, listening, relating, and collaborating. That's key. That's number one. Number two, my mental models are not reality. They're only my generalized stories of how my world works. My mental model of how my world works is different than your mental model, Frank, of how your world works, okay? But that's what I'm going out to basically confirm, all right? I'm not my ideas. Don't get my ego invested in, I believe this, I think this is right. I'm not my ideas. I must decouple my ideas from my ego. My ego now is new smart. I define myself by the quality of my thinking, listening, relating, and collaborating. I must be open-minded and treat my beliefs, not values, my ideas, as hypotheses to be constantly tested and subject to modification by better data. I've got to learn that what I believe is true is not likely to be true. Therefore, I need to learn all the time to go seek out disconfirming information. I need to ask myself, what if true would make what I believe not true? Have I looked for that? No, I haven't. Well, where would I look for it? Well, I'd go here, here, here. And that's why collaboration will be so key. Other people come to the table with their biases, and their biases are generally different than ours. They will see things we don't see, and I will see things they don't see. And if we have nice, good, caring, trusting relationships that's not competitive, we're going to help each other and come to the best answer for the team, for the company, for the group, for the people. Lastly, my mistakes and failures are opportunities to learn. In the world we're going to live in, nobody's going to know. And the key is learning from our mistakes. And the second key is keeping our mistakes small. All right? Therefore, we've got to have processes. How do we go out? One of the key human aspects that's going to differentiate us from the technology, Frank, is you and I are going to have to know how to go out into that world and explore the unknown and figure it out. All right? Technology can't do that. All right? All right. So that is so in order to get to where we can change our behaviors, we got to have a new definition of ourselves. We got to have a new mindset. We have to let go of this ego. And what's so fascinating is what we're really talking about. Learning is no more memorizing and taking standardized tests and getting good grades. Learning is going to be your ability to be really good at how to learn skills. And
Mhm.
those skills are going to be very behavioral. How to think, how to learn, how to listen. How to listen. How many people listen, Frank? Think about it. People may be listening to me now. Is their mind totally silent and fully listening to what you and I are talking about? Or are they making up their answers to your questions? Or are they critiquing us? Or are they thinking about what they got to do in an hour? Or thinking about that bad meeting they just were in 30 minutes ago? This concept of listening is to be highly focused. It's good. And then you get to collaboration. I'm intelligent, you're intelligent. We used to go out in the world and compete, my intelligence versus your intelligence.
Mhm.
Well, that's over because the science says no one can excel at knowing by themselves. We need others. All work is going to, all innovative, creative, critical thinking work, all of it's going to be done in teams. Collaboration is going to be mission critical. All right? Effective collaboration. No more is it your IQ or my IQ, it's the collective intelligence of the group. And that means we got to behave in ways where everybody participates. The
I
big
love
thing
that.
about the big difference, Frank, in the Industrial Revolution model, in the model that we need today is the Industrial Revolution model of doing business and of managing people is based on coercion and fear.
Yes.
The two biggest inhibitors to learning are fear and ego. We talked about ego just a moment ago. Fear and ego. All right. Therefore, and the other aspect of just think about it. I cannot coerce you. Frank, I want you to think critically. Do it by in the next hour. That's not possible. Frank, I want you to think innovatively, creatively. Frank, I want you to be really good at emotionally engaging with our customers. I can't command and direct you to do that. Okay? That doesn't work that way. And what it means is that command and control and direct sort of goes out the window. And by the way, Frank, I don't want you competing with your teammates. The goal is to have a team. Teams win, not people. And people are different. People are different. And all of that people stuff is emotional. Emotions are going to basically dominate in the workplace. Good emotions and negating fear. The workplace, all of a sudden, instead of being a machine, creating us to be human machines, is going to have to help us become human beings, okay, who excel cognitively, emotionally, and behaviorally. Completely new game. Completely new
Mhm.
game.
That's very interesting because as I was coming up, and probably as you were coming up, the thing we heard constantly, keep your emotions at the front door.
Yes, yes, exactly right. Leave your emotions at the front door. Okay, exactly right. And in fact, when I was going through my psychology graduate school, my professors were telling me, and most at that time were men, son, there's two sides of the brain. There's the good side, the cognitive side, and then there's that messy side that you got to just not get involved in. That's the emotional side. And what the neuroscience now says, it's all intertwined. Our brain is the emotions are intertwined in everything we do in our brain. I mean, in emotions, you go out 20 years from now with the technology, the key human uniqueness is going to be our emotions and our ability to emotionally engage with other human beings in ways the technology can't.
Hmm.
So the game is going emotions. The
Hmm.
game's going emotions. And that basically means that we've got to confront the reality, okay, what the science says of collective intelligence. And the science basically says the best teams, the best collaborative teams, there's 8 studies, 5 studies at MIT, 3 at Carnegie Mellon. We have teams of 5 people. The best problem solvers and the most creative, innovative people are teams made up of 5 women and no men.
Is that right?
The second best teams are 4 women and 1 man. Because women have been raised different in our society vis-a-vis emotions than us men are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Women view collaboration as relational. Men view it as a competition. Women believe everybody should speak up and that everybody should leave the meeting feel like they were valued and that they are feel good about the content. Men want to leave the meeting as soon as their views are basically accepted. Game done. I win. Let's go. Let's go, team. Complete transformations, and that's why I spend so much time in the book. The big challenge for people is that our value add is going to be soft skills, and that means we've got to take ownership of our inner world. People are going to have to learn how to basically manage their ego, manage their mind, manage their emotions, okay, and manage their body. And all of those things, to take ownership of our ego, to quiet it down, to have a quiet mind, to be fully present, not to be thinking while the other person or daydreaming or having your mind wander, but to be fully present all the time, to basically be able to generate positive emotions, because positive emotions basically enable learning. Negative emotions like fear, being afraid of not being liked, being afraid of looking bad, being afraid of getting a bad grade, afraid of hurting somebody's feelings. Now, you should be afraid if you're being mean, but I mean just normal. All those things get in the way of collaboration and teamwork. Have you ever been in a state of flow, Frank? State of flow?
State of flow. You have to explain it to me.
State of flow, where you've really felt all into something, you were fully into it, you were fully engaged, you lost sense of time, stuff just flowed naturally inside of you, and it was
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been there.
Yeah, I know you've been there. Well, what's going to be the goal in collaboration going forward is collective flow. The team gets into collective flow. That's going to be the highest level of human performance, collaborative performance in the business world. That is where this is going, and that's where people have got to basically take ownership of their inner world. I got to come to the table with a quiet ego, quiet mind, positive emotions, and a calm body.
There's a trust factor, I think, at the executive level now has to permeate through the operation. Let me give you an example I'm talking about. Franny Matthews, we talked about hers before we went on the air. She's the CEO of the Colorado Technology Association. She told me a story. Her daughter, who was an analytical degree in analytics, master's degree, was at work, and she calls her mother, types her mother a text and says, "Hey, we need to talk." She goes, "I'm doing this job. I can do an algorithm that can do this job. But if I do that, then they don't need me. What should I do?" And her response was, "Go talk to your boss. You write the algorithm because this is what they're looking for."
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, that trust has to permeate through the organization, correct? So that individual doesn't have that fear, that doubt.
That's right. That's right. The trust has to permeate through the organization, and the trust must be genuine and must be constantly improved when there are slip-ups. And that comes down to how people behave with each other. And it really comes down to the fact we need to humanize the workplace. Okay, we need to humanize the workplace, and that involves having a culture where psychological safety is present, is part of that culture. The great work of my friend Amy Edmondson, psychological safety. It means that my self-determination needs have to be met by my, if you will, quote, my manager, which I think that, I've been saying for a while, we ought to get rid of the word leadership and call it enableship. Leaders should be enablers of high performance. Get rid of command and control. Managers should be coaches, guides, mentors, all right? Because we've got to basically, every organization, in addition to its core mission, is going to have to be in the human development business. Because none of us have been trained to basically behave and think like we're going to need to behave in the business world. And so it's a massive change process which starts at the top. One of my earlier books, Learn or Die, one of the case studies I did was on Intuit. Intuit is a big technology company, as you know,
Know them well.
out in your area.
Mm-hmm.
Intuit decided that, they needed to become really much more innovative. And they basically changed their entire culture. And when they started their program, every senior executive was given a personal coach to work on changing his or her mindset and behaviors. And they built an innovation culture that empowered every employee without having to get anybody's consent to do small, all within financial parameters, small experiments.
Mm-hmm.
But they started out with the mindsets and the behaviors of the senior leadership. They had a comment, okay, it is time for Caesar to die, all right? No more of this command and control. And they did it, and it's ingrained, and it's just produced fabulous results. But it started with the leaders coming to the conclusion that we needed to behave differently. We needed to enable others, and it needs to go all the way down the rank so that you get to basically a psychologically safe environment where people feel or fear is reduced, people's self-determination needs are met, they feel like they have autonomy and input into their work, and they feel valued as a human being. There's still high standards, all right? Nobody's saying get rid of standards, but it's a different approach, all right? If you're not doing well in a job, you're not automatically fired. There's one or two problems. Either you don't have the training, and it's my duty to get you the training, or you don't have the capability, and then it's my mistake for putting you in the job. I need to put you in the right position where you can play to your strengths. I own it, not you, Frank. I'm using you as the employee, not you.
I understand.
All right? And it's a completely different game, but the game liberates people. It liberates people because human beings are going to have to basically in the digital age perform at much, much higher levels because all the easy stuff is going to be done by the technology. If it's rote, if it can be put into an algorithm, it's going to be done by technology.
It's amazing. Now I hear people with leadership positions still now in 2021, and they say, "Look, Frank, you talk about communication. We constantly communicate. We send out newsletters and podcasts and memos and reminders and virtual training. You name it, we do it." Now, Ed, you talk about it's connection, not communication. How do you explain the difference to these people?
Well, let's first define connection. Connection can happen walking down the hall. Connection can happen in a meeting. All right. So it's just at any time. Connection is me being fully present and connecting with you in a way that is meaningful, that you feel like I value Frank.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. I value Frank. I care about you. All right. And so I want to know about you, and how are you doing? How can I help you? And it happens in connection. The quality of connection, the quality of trust takes time to build up. So you start first by recognizing people. Okay. I back when I was in the real world, the business world, I was very fortunate, very lucky. I had great leaders who mentored me, and I didn't do it on my own. And I had a whole big group reporting to me, and I always got into the office early. And so one morning about 6:30, I'm walking down on one of the floors of my team, walking down, and I'm all involved in my thoughts. What's the day looking like? What meetings have I got? What's the purpose? I mean, how am I going to handle this? And I sort of faintly notice a young man walking past me, but I keep on walking because I'm thinking important stuff, Frank. I mean, I'm a senior executive. I'm doing important stuff. I'm trying to fix
Right.
this out, you know what I mean? All right.
Yes.
I get back to my office. I get a phone call from one of my vice presidents. He says, I'm coming to see you. I said, what are you coming to see me for? I'll tell you when I see you. I said, look, we're talking on the phone. Why are you coming up 3/4? Just tell me what's going on. He said, no, I'm coming to see you because you basically have made the best person working in my research team sit at his desk now, and he's writing his resume. I said, what? He says, I'll be up in 2 minutes. And he must have run up. He looked at me and he says, he told me who the young man was. He says, do you recall walking down the hall this morning on our floor and seeing him? Yeah, sort of, yeah, I do. Yeah, you were consumed, weren't you? I says, yeah, man, I was thinking. He says, he took that as that you didn't care about him, that you didn't like him. And he knows that he can't be a partner in this firm without your approval. So he's out there writing his resume. And, you know, he came from Wharton. He was a brilliant kid. He's the best person I've got at this. You need to fix this. I said, I'll fix it. So what did I do? Did I call the kid up and say, come up to my office? No.
You went to see him.
Go see him. And I apologized. And I admitted I was wrong. I was consumed with myself. All right. And I'm not saying I got it all figured out. I happened to be lucky back then, making all of this stuff came to me, and it was happened to be. I said, look, I want to make it up to you. What can I do that will help you grow, develop? What would you do? He says, I'd like to work with you on your next deal. I want to work with you. You teach me. I said, okay. And I said, by the way, I got one starting. Let's start tomorrow. That guy for the next 3 years worked on every deal I worked on. He was a superstar. And he went on to become CEO of a company. And I mean, but it's just, I wasn't trying to hurt that kid. I was just consumed with me. Leaders need to be consumed with their people. Be present, fully present. Be caring. All right? Build trust. Be helpers, enablers.
I worked with a company a couple years back, Ed, and they were floundering. They wanted more diversity. They wanted to bring people up in the organization. And the CEO said, biggest problem I have, Frank, I look at a meeting of senior executives and all I see is old, fat, bald, white guys, right? So we started to work with this organization. They had one gentleman, one manager who was this curmudgeon, so to speak. And it's my way. I don't care. We're doing it like this. End of conversation. Had two women, superstars, just like your example there. Superstars. Wouldn't listen. We would not pay attention, wouldn't listen, nothing. They left.
Yeah.
Big operation, a lot of high-tech buildings in the area. They drive to the same parking lot, park in the same space, and walk into a different building. When I met with the CEO, and I said, we talked about this individual earlier, and his initial response, Ed, was, well, he's only got 2 years to go, we'll wait him out. What do you say to leaders or potential enablers when they have somebody who is stifling growth?
Got to get them out. You either buy them out early, make it worthwhile to get rid of them, okay, or basically have a heart-to-heart and see if you can transform them. But basically, somebody like that is unlikely going to transform within 2 years.
Absolutely.
Okay? It's that old country music song, "Dance with the One That Brung You." All right, and then you buy them out. You have to buy them out, but they have to be taken. They have to be taken out of the role because the resources that were lost. All right, the resources were lost are huge and value add over their career far exceeds the cost of buying this person out, giving him 2 years of salary.
Mm-hmm.
Far exceeds. That would probably be the best investment that CEO can make. I'll give you 2 years of salary, pack up your bags, go.
Go away.
Go away.
Exactly. That would have been an ideal thing. And what they, as you said, what they lost were two innovative thinkers, and basically the company they went to has now exceeded the one that they left in the market sector.
You know, this some of your viewers may find controversial, but I published an article in CEO World the last 4 or 5 months, basically predicting by 2030, 50% of the CEOs in Fortune 500 companies will be women. The number today is substantially lower than anything like that, okay?
Absolutely.
Very low, but 50%. And I said, and the reason is because the skills that are going to be needed for leadership and high performance in the digital age are primarily soft skills and emotional skills and working with human being skills. And most women are naturally better at that than most men. Now, there are certain women that are not good, and there are certain men that are very good at it, okay? But overall, and I wrote that, one, to inspire women, but also I wrote it for men, because anybody can basically transform themselves if they're willing to do the hard work. If they're willing to work on their ego and work on how they listen and work on managing their mind and work on their emotional intelligence and actually embrace daily practices to work on it and actually give their people power to hold them accountable. I mean, I have companies that I'm working with that every person has a behavioral change checklist they're working on, and they have an app, and they grade each other after each meeting, give each other feedback, and people call people out in a nice way. And everybody's trying to be better behaviorally, because all of these conceptual things we're talking about, it all comes down to how I operationalize them through behaviors. Psychological safety. How do I behave with you, Frank, so you feel safe? All right? It's not like I ask everybody, does everybody feel safe? And Frank, you say, no, I don't feel safe. And the worst thing for me to say is, well, Frank, why don't you feel safe? All of a sudden, I've thrown it back on you that something's wrong with you.
Exactly.
And what I need to say is, Frank, what can I do to make you? What do I need to do to help you feel safe?
Mm-hmm.
How do I need to behave with you?
That's a great answer. Now, here's an interesting thing that I've run into. I worked for two major Fortune 50 corporations at a point in my life. Ed, how do you suggest that organizations address the Wall Street quarterly result mania? Because I lived in that world, and it was terrible.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, first of all, there is no science behind the rule that earnings have to continuously improve every quarter. In fact, the science says it's nigh impossible. Okay.
Correct.
It was all made up. I happened to be on Wall Street when the rule was made up. All right. And it was back in the time when we were moving towards a very I would say survival of the fittest mentality. We were moving away from the era 1947 to the early 70s, shared prosperity, to the sole purpose of the corporation is to increase shareholder value. There's no legal basis for that. There's no science basis for that. That was just a made up rule by some people. And the fact is that as part of that came down the rule, that means we got to grow quarterly. And Wall Street was all over that. Well, the fact is, it's very hard to do that. So what did Wall Street do? We created financial engineering products that we could sell you to help make your earnings.
Yes.
All right. And so the game has gone on, and it's basically it's not based in fact. It's not based in science. And And the companies are going to have to basically face that reality, all right, that in order to excel in the digital age, we're going to have to change our approach, and we're going to have to make people investments and other types of investments, and we've got to be playing a game that's much more based on continuous adaptation and innovation, and that basically is not going to be like this because that's highly human dependent. So what's going to do? It really, I ultimately think there needs to be a federal law which basically says the sole purpose of a corporation is not to produce profits just for shareholders. It's to basically to add value for shareholders, for employees, and for the communities you're doing business in, just like it was in the era of shared prosperity. Okay, just like the greatest economic growth era of our time when everyone shared was 47 through the early 70s. That was when the entire middle class was built.
Yes.
And, you know, business has talked about basically, if you will, multiple stakeholder. They signed documents saying we're going to do that, but you're not seeing a lot of behavior change. And I think it's going to take a law to basically change the behavior. And then also, since there's no law or science behind that, means earnings have to be earned quarterly. As part of that is we look at ourselves on an annual basis and see how we're doing. And also, you'll find very innovative companies having bad years, and then all of a sudden they go off the charts, like Tesla,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
Tesla, off the charts, off the charts.
They're making an investment. I worked for a CEO who I just admired, Mr. Exley, who was at NCR for years and years. And he used to always say, he was a financial guy, and he always said with the financial analysts is number one, as soon as you know something, tell them. Number one, he says, because if you don't, it says you lied to them, which is bad, or you don't know what the hell you're doing, which is worse. But if you have to make an investment, we're making this investment because, and therefore, these things are going to occur. Now, what he was extraordinarily good at was then passing that down to his management level people. So we were aware. So we had a story that we could say, hey, we're doing this because, and here's going to be the long-term benefit.
Yeah. And that's where we need to go. And we need to get away from the quarterly earnings game. We need to big business has got to be a good member of society in addition to being a good member of generating wealth for a small number of people.
This is a question that I asked Jeff Eichler. I want to get your answer on the same question. I interface with a lot of young people, Arizona State, freshmen, sophomore, that type of thing. And I'm seeing a lot of them starting businesses in junior high school and high school on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. And they understand technology and they understand what it can do, and they're not afraid of it. And one young woman said to me, why don't you have classes that address innovation and design methods or strategies, or things that I can use because I really don't give a damn about the Pythagorean theorem?
Yes, that's right. And she's right. She's right. And going forward, our public education system and our education system in colleges has got to basically, if you will, focus on developing people who can think critically, innovatively, and you can add creative and imaginative on that, and ultimately the highest level of thinking, emergent thinking. We got to basically give them, and that is all done experientially. All right, that's not reading something and writing an exam. That's not writing a paper. Learn by doing is going to be the new way. Active learning, all right, experiential learning. And people learn best, all right, when they have some autonomy and choice as to what the content is. So basically, you can train somebody to become innovative. For example, if they have their idea they want to work on. Don't have the whole class working on your idea. Have each person or the team working on their idea. That's when people get emotionally engaged in the process. The whole thing about this learn by doing, active learning, experiential learning, is learning how to make meaning, all right, of what words mean, how to use processes, how to communicate, listen to potential customers, how to do the research. That's going to be mission critical. I tell people, education is basically you want your students having the curiosity, open-mindedness, and resilience of a young child. Just remember when you learned how to ride a bicycle. All right, all right. Courage of an explorer. How do I go out there and explore? Well, there's processes. Let's teach them the process and let them go. All right. How to think like a scientist, be data driven, how to do little experiments, how to come up with hypotheses, how to analyze, okay, what must be true for this to be right? What if true makes this wrong? Or what could make this not successful? Okay. Actually have them make things, have them innovate, have them create. And so action-based learning is going to be mission critical all through our school system. And, you know, and quite frankly, it needs to start much before you get to college.
Absolutely.
And,
Oh,
and,
absolutely.
and so it's this a different, now there's pockets of this out there today, but it's not part of a broad curriculum, because if we think about it, everybody, even though there may not be jobs going forward, most people won't have full-time jobs. And most people who have full-time jobs going forward are going to have short-term contracts. Okay, I'm hiring you to work on this project for 3 years, and then we'll see what's available in the next 3 years, and we may or may not hire you back. All right. Other people are going to be short-term contracts, or, you know, if you want to call them giggers. A lot of people are going to be entrepreneurs. A lot of people are going to have to find work in their communities, because if the best predictions on automation are correct, we're talking tens of millions of jobs being automated. All right, but people need work in order to have a meaningful life. People need to contribute to the community. So a whole new way of working that's going to be experiential. So in communities, it's not only the college kids that need to learn how to innovate, how to create, how to think differently, how to work in teams. Older people, adults need it. So you're going to have like innovation community labs. All right. You're going to find basically retired successful people basically being coaches and mentors in public schools and colleges, in the community labs, teaching people how to innovate. People who have innovated. Okay. I mean, a great school that was built on a model like I'm talking about is Olin College of Engineering, outside of Boston. All right, it's an undergraduate engineering school where 70% of the curriculum from day one, all 4 years, is experiential learning. 30% is content in classroom, generally speaking. All right, and they hired basically retired engineers and innovators and everything. And so most of the, if you will, experiential work is coached by people who spent their life innovating, creating, innovating, and everything, and the academics did the teaching.
Mm-hmm.
It's a phenomenal school. That's sort of like the model for the future.
That would be interesting. I'm glad you mentioned the thing about young children. I'm a mentor with the University of California Entrepreneurship Academy, and they did an experiment. These are some of the most, they're some of the most brilliant minds in the world. And they did a thing in an entrepreneur workshop, and they had spaghetti and they had marshmallows. And you've probably heard this study before. And they said, who can make the highest building, right? And so they got these engineers and designs, and they're going through this. And then they showed a clip of kindergartners. And the kindergartners were bigger. There was no arguing. There was no, and they were just, okay, let's try this and let's try that. And they were all clapping if something worked. That's where we have to get to.
You're exactly right. Because there wasn't fear and there was team. It wasn't competition. And they made it fun. You're exactly right. So we got to get rid of the fear. We got to get rid of the ego. We got to get rid of survival of the fittest competition mindset.
And that is a great way to end this incredible conversation, because we're just about out of time. So, Ed, is there any last thoughts or words you want to leave with the viewers around the world today?
Embrace the reality. Get on a journey to learning, to hyper learning, and work at it. And you can do it. And embrace your family and embrace colleagues and find people that will basically together. Let's go try some of this stuff. Let's go try some of it, even if we do it on our own time. And most important, if you're parents, dinner time conversations at the table. Not what did you do the day and how's your friend doing and what you would like for dinner, but start basically raising so that children do not lose their courage to try, just like when they tried to learn a bicycle. Keep giving them opportunities to learn and try. And let's all get on a journey where we all win, not just a few win.
I love that. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, we are just about out of time. I want to thank my guest, Ed Hess, again for sharing this incredible vision of hyperlearning, because we're going to have to change the culture and the way we learn. It has to happen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what life throws at you, please do three things. I want you to look up. I want you to get up and never, ever give up. Pick up the pieces and start moving forward, and better times and better people will come into your life. If you want more information about Mr. Professor Hess, you can contact him at all his websites, or contact me and I'll make sure that it gets to him. You can see this show on ROKU TV or on my YouTube channel. And I also will send links to Professor Hess, and then he can post them in all the places that he has his things at. If you use my YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Let me leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Ed has showed us where many of those rocks are. Join me again next week, and we'll discuss another life-altering event. Thank you again, Ed.
Thank you, Frank.